Millionaire Cowboy's heart transformed when he discovered the truth about the Orphans House. Dakota Reynolds, the self-made millionaire cowboy, owned the largest ranch in Texas. Yet in moments of silence, an emptiness echoed through his sprawling estate. It was one of those afternoons, sun beating down mercilessly, when he rode along the outskirts of town that he stumbled upon the decaying structure known as the Orphans House. Weeds strangled its foundation, and shadows seemed to clutch its walls. Once a safe haven for lost children, it now looked like a graveyard of hopes. A childhood like Dakota's, steeped in poverty, hadn't prepared him to care about such things. He was too busy protecting his empire from the perceived chaos of the world beyond. But then she appeared, Miss Agnes, the elder with a heart worn by years of care. Dakota paused as she began weaving tales of resilience, love, of children who found joy amidst struggle, of miracles that broke through gray clouds. With each story, old memories flickered, visceral reminders of isolation that threatened to resurface. Had he built his empire only to forge walls around a heart long shut away? As he listened, the numbness began to crack, curiosity blooming in the strange garden of his heart. The children, all with their own pain and laughter, lived vibrant lives that mystified him. Dakota had only known ambition, but there was this one girl, Lily, whose dreams of being an artist pulled at him like a lasso. Her voice painted pictures of colors and canvas, each giggle challenging his cold resolve. He couldn't shake the feeling that she was unlocking the ruinous vaults of his soul, revealing warmth where once there had been only ambition. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Just as Dakota began sinking roots into this newfound purpose, disaster struck. A financial scandal erupted around him, a dark cloud choking his legacy. Whispers of betrayal swirled like a dust storm, and his name was on the lips of nearly every gossip-hungry soul in town. The orphanage, the very structure that had started to feel like a lifeline, was at risk of shutting its doors. He felt his chest tighten, heart racing in heaving breaths. The rumors pushed him into a pit of despair, torn between saving the children who now throbbed in his heart, or protecting himself and all he had built. Could he sacrifice his empire for the sake of those innocent lives whose laughter had somehow become a balm for his weary spirit? Every moment swelled with unbearable pressure, his mind a tumult of self-preservation and burgeoning responsibility. Dakota fought against looming dread, the weight of expectation pressing down with unrelenting force. Would he let down a girl who dreamed in colors, who could shatter a heart once ironclad? As the clock ticked relentlessly forward, one question pounded in his mind. Could a man who'd sheltered his soul behind walls of ambition finally feel the stirrings of connection? The shadows loomed larger, forcing him to confront his past. Each decision hovered, electrifying in its gravity, yet the answer danced just out of reach. The evening folded into night, wrapping Dakota in shadows of uncertainty as he stood on the balcony of his estate, staring out into the vast expanse of the Texas horizon. The ranch, once a monument to his triumph, felt less like a sanctuary and more like a gilded cage. He could hear the faint whispers of the passing wind, carrying the echoes of children's laughter from the orphan's house. It twistingly reminded him of the innocence he had long since buried under layers of ambition and skepticism. The scandal swirling around him was not just a threat to his fortune, it was a challenge to the newfound purpose that had ignited within him. "I can't let them down," he whispered into the silence, his voice hoarse from grappling with the conflicting tides within. The executive decisions he had mastered for years held no value in the face of a child's tears. With every beat of his racing heart, he realized that success, stripped of empathy, was hollow. The next morning, he woke with a resolve that was foreign yet invigorating. Determined to confront the impending crisis, he dressed in his worn boots and old jeans, a departure from his usual polished attire. This was the armor he wore when he was still climbing for the dreams of his youth. Drawing a deep breath, he mounted his horse and galloped toward town. The wind in his face felt like a cleansing rush, urging the remnants of his fear away. He envisioned the children at the orphanage, like Lily, clutching her paintbrush, expressing their truths through vivid strokes of color. Those images echoed like mantras, guiding him as he approached the local bank, where he had arranged an emergency meeting to discuss the funding crisis. Yet with each stride, doubt gnawed at him. What could a cowboy like him articulate amidst suits and ties? Had he lost too much to reclaim his voice? As Dakota entered the bank, eyes flicked toward him, recognition and scorn mingling in the air. "What brings you here, Dakota?" the bank manager asked, a sly smile curving his lips. The undercurrent of mockery lingered, like a knife plunged deep into his resolve. But he knew he could not falter. "I'm here to talk about the orphans," he started, his voice steadying against the weight of judgment. Each word felt heavy, yet he pressed forward, recounting the stories Agnes had shared. He painted a vivid image of the light those children brought to their world. "If I have to lose everything I built, then let me carry their burdens instead." The silence that followed was palpable, a moment hung breathlessly in time. He took a breath, letting the sincerity of his intention flood the room. "I'm asking you to invest in their future, not just for charity, but for humanity's sake. This isn't just about profit, it's about hope." The manager's expression cooled, contemplation cutting through the previous mockery. "And what assurances can you provide us?" In that instant, clarity burst forth within Dakota. It wasn't just a financial proposal he had to offer. He was offering himself, a steadfast commitment to defend those whose voices were often silenced. As the conversation progressed, it turned out to be a battle not just for the orphanage's fate, but for Dakota's own redemption. It would take more than money. He was starting to grasp that the foundation of his empire was built on values he had forgotten. The climb would be steep, and the odds daunting, but determination swelled within him. He was not moving alone. He carried the dreams of the children with him. But just as hope began to lighten the shadows, an urgent call shattered the air. "Dakota, we need you at the Orphans House. There's been a problem." Every question he had about his identity, his future, spun again into the dizzying unknown. What awaited him now felt like a volatile storm brewing. Would he have the strength to face the challenge, or would he retreat once more into safety? Dakota raced back to the Orphans House, each gallop echoing the pulse of urgency within him. His mind swirled with apprehensions and fragmented thoughts of what could have gone wrong. As he dismounted and charged through the door, a scene of chaos greeted him. Children huddled together, faces streaked with panic, while Agnes hurriedly spoke with an agitated official. The air crackled with distress. "Dakota!" Agnes cried, her voice cutting through the din. "It's Lily. She was painting near the creek, and she slipped. They're saying she may need medical attention." For a moment, the world around him blurred. A tidal wave of responsibility washed over him. This little girl, a symbol of his rebirth, was at stake. Clenching his fists, he swallowed the knot in his throat. "Where is she?" Agnes directed him to the back of the property, where Lily lay on a stretcher, her face pale yet intact, stained with grass and tears. Relief mingled with dread as Dakota knelt beside her, taking in the fragile yet fierce spirit she embodied. "Hey, Lily, I'm here," he murmured, grabbing her tiny hand in his. "You're going to be all right." "Dakota," she whimpered, her voice as soft as a breeze. "I tried to make it beautiful." A sense of guilt washed over him. "You already did, sweetheart. You brought so much color to this place." He noticed the way her breaths quickened. They mirrored the turmoil he felt inside. "You're strong. Hold on to that strength for me." Minutes passed that felt like eternity until the paramedics arrived and whisked her away. Dakota's heart drummed in his chest. Could he salvage not just the orphanage, but also the fragile dream he was slowly understanding? The fear in Lily's eyes rang louder than any material loss he might face. When he finally turned to Agnes, their eyes locked in a silent pact. "We can't just sit back and hope," he said, urgency fueling his voice. "I need to do something impactful." A spark ignited within Agnes. "You mean like a fundraiser?" "Yes, but not just any fundraiser. We need to rally this town, bring people together, show them what this place means." The glimmer of possibility metamorphosed into a solid plan as they gathered the staff and children, building their vision with fervor. The orphanage would host an art exhibition showcasing the children's work, transforming trauma into triumph. Dakota began to see the contours of his path emerging through the fog. They would represent resilience and hope through Lily's art and the expressions of every child. As word spread, murmurs grew into conversations, and the town began to buzz with anticipation. Yet not everyone shared their enthusiasm. The bank manager caught wind of the plan and sought him out. "Do you really think this is going to save you? A few paintings won't change the financial realities that jeopardize your operations." That doubt lashed at Dakota's newly forged resolve. "It's not just a fundraiser," he replied, meeting the manager's gaze with unwavering conviction. "It's about rekindling a sense of community, about reminding each other that we're in this together." But beneath the surface, uncertainty gnawed at him. Would the town rally for something that felt so fragile? Time was not a luxury he could afford. The exhibition day arrived, the sun painting the sky orange and gold. As they prepared, he felt the weight of every skeptical whisper. The stakes were higher than ever. This wasn't just salvaging a building, it was a fight for lives to be seen and valued. As guests poured in, Dakota took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of community fold around him. But just as laughter filled the room, a familiar figure appeared at the entrance, one whose presence wreaked chaos in his carefully orchestrated plans. Would this be the final test of his character, or would it signal the transformation he desperately sought? The moment of truth loomed, and Dakota realized this exhibition would either cement his commitment to the children or shatter the fragile support he had begun to build. Would he rise to the occasion, or would the past come back to haunt him? The atmosphere shifted as Dakota spotted the familiar figure standing just beyond the entrance. It was Marcus, the bank manager, his usual confident demeanor morphing into a predatory smile. Dakota's pulse quickened. Marcus was a constant reminder of the financial entanglements that threatened to suffocate the Orphans House. With Lily's painting representing hope now on display, the stakes intensified unwelcome feelings of vulnerability within him. Dakota, Marcus called, striding forward with a menacing calmness. "What a charming event you've orchestrated here. A gallery of aspirations, wouldn't you say?" "More than aspirations, Marcus," Dakota replied, forcing control over his voice, suppressing the residual traces of the boy he once was, overwhelmed by chaos and defeat. "This is a chance for these kids to show their worth." "Worth," he chuckled derisively, a sinister spark in his eyes. "You think a few pictures and some nice words can erase the debts? You're merely painting over the cracks." His words struck Dakota like an unexpected blow. Each phrase soaked in a truth he couldn't deny, but he refused to yield to the despair that clawed at him. "I'm not trying to erase anything. We're giving them a voice, a chance to feel valued." "Valued?" he chuckled derisively, a sinister spark in his eyes. "You think a few pictures and some nice words can erase the debts? You're merely painting over the cracks." His words struck Dakota like an unexpected blow. Each phrase soaked in a truth he couldn't deny, but he refused to yield to the despair that clawed at him. "I'm not trying to erase anything. We're giving them a voice, a chance to feel valued." "Valued?" Marcus leaned in closer, his tone almost a whisper. "You can't shelter them from reality, Dakota. Sooner or later they'll realize that life isn't all rainbows and brushstrokes." Each word was a counterpoint to Dakota's burgeoning hopes, weaving doubt into the fabric of his resolve. But the children, their smiling faces were etched in his mind, the painting's vibrant colors a declaration that their stories mattered. As Marcus stepped back, surveying the growing crowd, Dakota's thoughts raced. This was more than an exhibition. It was a battleground. The children deserved not just a few fleeting moments of joy, but a tangible future. Could he really let this moment slip through his fingers? Drawing a deep breath, he confronted Marcus. "I'm not turning back. I'm committed to these kids. They've inspired me to fight for something greater than myself." And yet, the walls within Dakota's mind began to fracture. A dull ache of fear settled in his chest, the fear of not living up to the ideals they had set out to achieve. Would he really be able to support this initiative against the tide of financial despair? What did it mean to fight for something when the very foundation was crumbling? Marcus shifted his gaze, almost as if dismissing Dakota entirely, and began mingling with the guests. The sight ignited a burning determination in Dakota. He could not allow that man's doubts to sow further seeds of uncertainty. He needed to find strength within himself that he had never believed existed. Setting aside thoughts of Marcus, Dakota re-engaged with the crowd, approaching families admiring their children's artwork. He felt their excitement, and it reinforced his beliefs. Each piece told a story of pain, hope, and strength, and he wanted the world to see that. The night wore on, but beneath the surface calm lay the tumult of his racing thoughts. What could he do if the crowd's enthusiasm dwindled? How could he transform this moment into something more substantial than a mere exhibition? Just then, a faint but piercing scream echoed from the outside. Dakota shot back toward the doors to find a commotion developing among a group of children. Heart pounding, he waded through the crowd, dread gripping him. What had just gone wrong? In that instant, Dakota understood. He needed to lead through action, not just words. The actual test awaited him as he approached the situation unfolding at the entrance, with every intention to protect those who had relied on him. The sound of laughter and chatter faded into an intense silence, his heart pounding against the vivid memories of those children. Were they all truly safe? Would he falter again or emerge as a true guardian? The answer danced on the edge of his understanding as he stepped into the chaos. Dakota burst through the doors, his instincts sharpening into focus as he scanned the scene. A cluster of children had formed a semicircle around a small, terrified figure seated on the ground. It was Charlie, a shy boy whose drawings had resonated deeply with Dakota. The other children jabbered nervously, hands wringing with uncertainty, their excitement from the gallery now morphing into an unsettling energy. "Everyone, back up," Dakota commanded, stepping forward, his voice slicing through the confusion. The children hesitated, but gradually retreated, allowing Dakota room to kneel beside Charlie. He could see the streaks of tears mingled with dirt on the boy's cheeks, his eyes reflecting a vulnerability that ignited a protective flame within Dakota. "What happened, buddy?" Dakota asked, trying to maintain a calm demeanor despite the turmoil breaching his heart. It's nothing," Charlie stammered, his small voice barely rising above the whispers of the onlookers. Dakota could feel the weight of that nothing hanging in the air, a palpable sadness that threatened to engulf them all. He placed a comforting hand on Charlie's shoulder. "It's okay to tell me. You can trust me." With encouragement, Charlie pointed shakily toward a group of older kids lingering at the edge of the crowd. They were laughing and sneering, their shadows casting long against the gallery wall. Dakota's jaw clenched. These were the same boys from the neighborhood who took pleasure in bullying others. "I didn't want them to see my painting," Charlie admitted, shame spilling from his eyes. "They said it was stupid. They said nobody would ever want it." Those words struck Dakota hard, reverberating in his chest like a haunting echo. Hesitation flickered within him. Here he was, fighting for the dreams of these children, yet facing a reality that further marginalized them. For a moment, the walls he had built to shield himself trembled under the weight of responsibility. His own insecurities crept back, taunting him. Could he truly be their advocate in a world filled with Marcus-like cynicism? But as he looked at Charlie, he felt that flicker of determination igniting once more. "Listen to me, Charlie. Your painting is beautiful, and what they say doesn't matter. Your art, your voice, they are important, and I will make sure everyone knows that." Charlie lifted his gaze, a glimmer of hope sparking amid the tears. Dakota knew this moment was crucial, not just for Charlie, but for the others witnessing it. They needed to see strength being manifested through action. Dakota rose, taking Charlie's hand in his. "Let's show them what you created," he proclaimed, lifting Charlie slightly to his feet. The faces of the other children shifted, captivated by Dakota's resolve. He turned back to face the larger crowd, the older boys still circling like vultures. "Hey, everyone, come look at Charlie's masterpiece," Dakota shouted, his voice strong with conviction. The excitement buzzed back to life as the children rallied around him, eager to embrace the moment. As Dakota led Charlie toward the display area, a challenge flickered in his mind. He had not just to protect this boy, but to confront the barriers that sought to dim the light of creativity and hope. Did he possess the courage to transform this exhibition into an ongoing platform for the children's voices? With each step forward, he felt the weight of that responsibility heavy on his shoulders, but it no longer suffocated him, rather, it empowered him. It was time to build something substantial, a movement for all the children to assert themselves through their art. But amidst those thoughts, Dakota could not shake the feeling that Marcus was still watching, waiting for his moment to exploit any sign of weakness. The confrontation with the bank manager loomed just ahead, and while he felt a burgeoning sense of purpose, the shadows of doubt still lurked. With Charlie's hand firmly in his grip, Dakota prepared to face not only the judgment of others, but the reality of his own doubts and fears. He was ready to turn the tide, to lead the charge, not just as a protector, but as a catalyst for change. As they reached the showcase, Dakota's heart raced. Could he defy the odds and turn the tide in favor of hope? He was prepared to find out, but in that moment the atmosphere shifted once again, and Dakota sensed that the real battle was just beginning, with no clear end in sight. Dakota guided Charlie toward the display, the murmurs of curiosity pulsating around them. He could feel the collective tension in the room, anticipation tinged with wariness. As they approached, he mentally prepared himself for what lay ahead. Fear, after all, could often breed contempt, and he knew that not everyone would share his enthusiasm for Charlie's art. "Right here, everyone," Dakota called out, his voice cutting through the crowd, ensuring it held a firmness that demanded attention.
He felt Charlie's small hand trembling in his, and with a reassuring squeeze, he continued, "This is Charlie, and he has a masterpiece to share with all of you." With a gentle motion, Dakota encouraged Charlie to step forward and present his work. The kids were close now, their previously competitive energy melting into intrigue, each one secretly rooting for Charlie despite the unnamed pressure from the older boys. As Charlie unveiled his painting, Dakota's heart swelled with pride. The swirls of color expressed a tumult of emotions: joy, fear, resilience, everything Charlie had kept bottled up. But the realization of the moment felt charged with an inevitable surge of discomfort. Dakota recalled the sneers, the whispers of those who might attempt to belittle this treasured effort. He braced himself for the fallout. "Wow, this is amazing!" one child exclaimed, breaking the ice, and a ripple of applause washed over the others. Loosening the tension, Dakota watched as Charlie's eyes widened with disbelief, a smile breaking through the heartbreak. Then, just as Dakota thought they had turned a corner, that shadow he feared slithered back into view. The same older boys who had mocked Charlie began to inch forward, their laughter invasive and crude. Dakota's anger flared. He needed to confront it decisively. "Hold up," Dakota interjected, stepping protectively in front of Charlie. "What's your excuse for being here, boys? This isn't a place for bullying. You might not see the value in Charlie's art, but it's about time you learn to respect creativity." The older boys exchanged glances, some laughing, others sneering. A confrontation loomed, one that could either ignite further embarrassment for Charlie or reinforce the solidarity of their small community. "Yeah, right. Art? What a joke," one of them retorted, shoving his hands into his pockets dismissively. Dakota felt a wave of frustration build within him. He understood the importance of standing firm. He recognized it for the personal struggle it invoked deep inside him. As the laughter started to grow, Dakota turned back to the group of kids surrounding Charlie. "Every single person here has something to say through their art. No one should feel like they need to hide or feel ashamed. That includes you guys." He could feel his resolve shifting, and rather than seeking approval from the kids, he began to passionately lay out his vision. What if we all came together? What if we created a space where every voice matters? He paused, the idea itself igniting something within him. Imagine a place where everyone's art, including yours, can hang, be seen, and celebrated. No more hiding, no more fear. His words hung in the air, and the crowd grew silent, absorbing his suggestion. In that moment, he realized he wasn't merely advocating for Charlie. He was breaking free from his own limitations, questioning the very boundaries that defined his purpose. As Dakota stood there, feeling the weight of expectation shift, he sensed a flicker of potential not just within himself, but in the boys he faced. Would they relent, or would they continue their assault? As he scanned the space, seeking a response from the raucous boys, he felt his heart pounding. This was more than just advocating for Charlie. It was a moment where he could lay his fears bare and confront the uncertainty cloaked in judgment. With his next breath, he realized that this moment could be the catalyst not only for the kid's works, but for himself as well. The exhilaration of that thought coursed through him. But even as he prepared to engage, that familiar tightening knot of doubt made its presence known. Was he truly prepared to face whatever came next? An unresolved tension pulsed through him, affirming that the confrontation was just beginning. The stakes had never been higher, and on the brink of uncertainty lay an expedition toward self-discovery. As he prepared to navigate this uncertain terrain, he steeled himself for whatever reaction awaited him and the children around him. Little did he know, his moment of clarity held secrets that could transform everything. Would courage prevail? Dakota felt the air thick with tension, a palpable mix of hostility and curiosity swirling around him as the older boy's reactions hung in the balance. He tightened his grip on Charlie's hand, sensing that this was not just a fight against bullying, but a reflection of his own uncharted depths. Could he truly stand his ground, knowing the risks involved? "Art's for losers," one boy shouted, breaking the stillness. Dakota's pulse quickened at that point. He had anticipated derision and faced it before, but standing in this charged atmosphere with Charlie beside him brought everything to a sharp focus. "We all see the world differently," Dakota countered, the heat of passion edging into his words. "And it's our differences that inspire creativity. What if, instead of tearing each other down, we build something up?" A wave of intrigue rippled through the crowd. The younger kids watched uncertainly, while the older boys exchanged glances that revealed cracks in their facade of bravado. It was as if Dakota's words laid bare the insecurities they masked with bravado. Then another boy scoffed, something glinting in his eyes. "You think art is going to change anything? It's just paint on a canvas." That line hit Dakota with unexpected force. He felt a creeping doubt slither back in, threading itself tightly around his core. What if he was right? Art was often dismissed as frivolous by those who failed to see its power, but Dakota understood its potential to heal, connect, and inspire. "What if it can?" Dakota shot back, drawing on his thickening resolve. "What if art can share our fears, our joys, and even our failures? Maybe that's what we need, a way to understand each other beyond these harsh walls we've built." The silence that followed was unsettling. His words echoed in his mind, their weight pressing down painfully in his chest. Was he truly willing to put himself on the line like this? Dakota was now staring into the faces of the boys who had long intimidated him. Could he convince them to see what they had overlooked? The beauty of vulnerability, of expression, and of acceptance? He realized that this moment was spilling over with potential, both for him and for Charlie. They had taken steps toward standing defiantly against the tide of ridicule, together. But would they emerge unscathed, or would this be just another painful defeat? That knot of tension within him began to unravel, however slightly. He found himself wanting to transform that anger into a more profound motivation. This wasn't just a stand for Charlie. It could be a stand for everyone who carried burdens of unexpressed creativity, including himself. "Listen," he took a deep breath. "Art isn't just for the talented. It's a window to our soul. When we engage with it honestly, we create a space where all voices matter." And in that moment, as Dakota spoke, he felt a shift, not just in the energy of the room, but within himself.
He was becoming something he wasn't sure he could be, a leader, a voice for those who feared being themselves. But then he caught the glint of skepticism in the eyes of the older boys again, and uncertainty slithered back into his thoughts. What would happen if they didn't relent, if they doubled down? Suddenly he knew he needed to rally the younger kids. "Who wants to create an art community?" he shouted, his voice rising above the uncertainty. To his surprise, tiny arms shot into the air. Fueled by this unexpected support, Dakota pressed on, yet that nagging doubt still lingered. Was the challenge ahead bigger than he realized? As his heart raced with ambitions he hadn't dared to entertain, a shadow loomed behind the crowd, a familiar figure stepping close enough to hear his words, and Dakota's heart sank. A new adversary, one he hadn't anticipated, had joined the fray. Suddenly, the stakes felt insurmountable, and Dakota braced himself. Would he rise or fall in the face of this unexpected confrontation? The air crackled with danger, and revelation lay just beyond. Dakota felt a sudden chill wash over him as he registered the presence of the newcomer, Gareth, the notorious ringleader of the older boys. He stood at the back of the gathering, arms crossed, with a smirk that sent a jolt of fear through Dakota. This was no longer just a confrontation with inconsiderate peers. It transformed into a battle with someone who wielded authority through intimidation and had no qualms about pushing others down to maintain it. "Are you really going to preach about art, Dakota?" Gareth's voice was dripping with mockery. "What do you even know about life? It's all about power and survival here." Dakota felt the weight of Gareth's disdain crushing him. For a fleeting moment, his resolve faltered, and the thoughts raced through his mind. What if I'm not cut out for this? What if I'm just fooling myself? Yet, beneath that fear lurked something else, a realization that could not be ignored. His heart picked up pace, a thrum of defiance igniting fury within him, firing thoughts he had suppressed until now. "What do you know about art?" Dakota shot back, surprising even himself with the intensity in his tone. "It's not about the life we're forced to live. It's about the life we can create. Maybe that's why people like you can't see its value. You fear what you can't control." The crowd stirred, a ripple of surprise moving through them. Charlie squeezed Dakota's hand tighter, as if trying to anchor him, but in that moment, Dakota felt less like a boy on the brink of defeat, and more like someone awakened to a long latent power. He could sense that the crowd was capturing every word, and it fueled his urgency. Art is a choice to break through the pain and express what we carry. It's more than just paint. It's a way to reclaim our humanity in a world that often steals it. Gareth chuckled derisively, but Dakota could see a flicker of uncertainty flickering in his eyes. How fascinating it was! The ringleader was starting to waver. Dakota dared to lean further into the challenge, tapping into an almost primal urge to defend not just himself, but all who found themselves marginalized by the aggressive inertia of conformity. Art has the ability to turn pain into growth. Your need for power over others just shows how weak you are in facing the beauty of vulnerability. Why is that so threatening to you? The atmosphere in the clearing shifted. Dakota could feel the tension vibrating, and he had the crowd eating from the palm of his hand, their initial reservations eclipsed by his raw honesty. This confrontation was no longer simply a moment of defiance. It was an awakening of his own potential. But there remained the echo of uncertainty. Would pushing back mean earning respect or landing in the crosshairs of Gareth's wrath? What if this emboldenment only invited more conflict? Dakota's mind wrestled with consequences, the precarious dynamics of masculinity, and the fear of loneliness creeping back in. Suddenly, the stakes felt painfully personal. It wasn't just about art anymore. It was about who he was becoming. Standing tall, Dakota scanned the faces around him. More than just spectators now. They were potential allies. He needed to rally them for the sake of something beyond himself. If we make art, we can tell our stories, our truths. We can inspire each other. Are you with me? A chorus of voices erupted as children from every corner of the grouping hesitantly lifted their hands. Curiosity transformed into a burgeoning sense of belonging. Triumph warred with the dread of Gareth's looming threat. In that moment of fragile solidarity, Dakota felt a new strong pulse in his veins, awakening aspirations he hadn't fully grasped. He wasn't just fighting for art, he was cultivating an idea, a community bound by shared struggles and diverse expressions. Amidst growing cheers, Dakota felt eyes burning into him once again. Gareth stepped forward, the smirk haunting his face returning, a promise of an impending confrontation. The boy's power may have resided in intimidation, but Dakota was no longer merely reactive. The true battle was about to unfold, one that could alter how he perceived himself, standing firm against everything. Standing on the precipice of his fears, he braced for the challenge that awaited. Would he emerge with a new understanding or succumb to the cycle of cruelty? The tension was electric, and Dakota knew to brace for a rush of confrontation that could change everything. Would he find the resilience he needed to sustain his newfound identity? In that charged moment, Dakota stood on the cusp of a confrontation that could define his very essence. Gareth's approach took the air from his lungs, his confidence a facade slowly unraveling under the current of Dakota's challenge. It was striking how an audience could shift from apathy to engagement in mere seconds. Yet Dakota felt pinned under the scrutiny of Gareth's gaze. "Do you really think you can inspire them?" Gareth's voice, once mocking, now held a dangerous edge. "They're just kids. They'll follow whoever has the strongest hand." Dakota steadied himself, reminding himself of the flickers of hope he had ignited. Each press of fear mingled with determination. The stakes grew significantly higher. His throat tightened as he looked at Charlie, who stood rooted beside him, eyes wide with uncertainty. "Strength doesn't just come from intimidation, Gareth," Dakota countered, forcing the words through a throat that felt as dry as the desert sun. "It emerges from something deeper, something that binds people together rather than tears them apart." Gareth sneered, the expression settling onto his features as a mask of disdain. "You think your little talk of art will change anything? You'll be back to hiding behind your brushes in no time." Each word was laced with ice, and the crowd waited, hearts pounding. But Dakota was no longer a matter of what if. He was committed to the confrontation. He realized that this was not merely a challenge against Gareth, but a testament to his own heartbeat. "Every artist starts from somewhere," Dakota proclaimed, the anger rising in his chest, fusing with an unexpected passion. "You think I'm just another boy scared of your power? No, I'm finding my voice." The expression on Gareth's face fogged with confusion and perhaps, just perhaps, a hint of fear. That real vulnerability stood naked for all to see, his own weapon of control wavering under scrutiny. In this bizarre dance of power, Dakota began to understand the essential truth. Courage isn't the absence of fear, but the decision to press forward regardless. The crowd was leaning in, anticipation buzzing like static electricity. They were hungry for authenticity, for someone bold enough to challenge their perceived fate. Art means we can break the cycle of fear. We create our identity, our reality, to rise above the immediate. Dakota cut through the charged air again, breathing life into his own words. This isn't about power, it's about transformation. A ripple pulsed through the audience. Dakota's pleas invoked something deeper, a connection to their own frustrations, a glimpse at how they could reshape their world. It was as if a dormant force had awakened in their collective spirit. Yet, beneath this growing momentum, Dakota harbored an unsettling thought. With Gareth faltering, what lengths might he go to reclaim his authority? Would this be the moment that ignited Gareth to unleash further chaos? Or would it mark a turning point for both of them? One of the boys in the crowd, emboldened by Dakota's intensity, shouted, "What if we're not afraid anymore?" Dakota's heart raced. His own courage had sparked a flame among his peers, igniting a sense of purpose that could rise to challenge Gareth's dominance. Yet he could feel the tension coiling tighter. Gareth's expression was transforming into something less playful and more predatory. "Think you're brave now, Dakota?" Gareth stepped closer, closing the gap. "You've chosen a dangerous game." Dakota locked eyes with Gareth, the world narrowing around them. The time had come to confront not just this volatile ringleader, but his own fears. The very essence of his unpredictability lay ahead. As Dakota braced for Gareth's response, he could practically see the confrontation unfolding like brushstrokes on a canvas. Unpredictable, yet entirely his to create. Would he find the strength to hold his ground, or would he stumble as the pressure escalated? The moment hung heavy, and Dakota knew. He was set to either forge a new path ahead, or risk losing everything he'd just begun to build. What would emerge from this crucible of tension would redefine more than just a single moment. It would reshape his entire journey. Dakota inhaled deeply, the air around him heavy with expectation. There was no retreating now. With every person there, every child relying on him, he found the daring resolve to lean into this boiling tension rather than shrink back. He was done being a figure locked away by success. Now he was ready to fight not just for himself, but for every child whose dreams had become tangled in isolation. Look around you, Gareth. These kids deserve better than to live in your shadow. Art is their voice, a chance to break free. I won't let you silence them, Dakota declared, his voice ringing with clarity and conviction. In that moment of confrontation, he felt the shackle of years of insecurity fracture. Dakota wasn't simply defending Charlie anymore. He had transformed into an emblem of resilience, a living testament of change. The crowd leaned in, curiosity sparking as they noted his evolution. No longer just a millionaire cowboy hidden behind wealth, but a compassionate leader born anew. Art isn't just a distraction, Dakota continued, the words flowing effortlessly now, fueled by newfound purpose. It's an expression of identity. It's survival. Every child here holds a story that deserves to be told. He glanced to Charlie, who watched with wide eyes, allowing Dakota to forge ahead with pride for the boy who had become the center of his world. His confidence surged as several children began voicing their support, echoing, "We appreciate you," and "Art matters to us." Their small voices intertwined into a chorus, empowering Dakota and fortifying the bonds they shared. Yet the air still crackled. Gareth squared his jaw, his facade cracking, revealing his discomfort. For the first time, a flicker of uncertainty crossed his face. The crowd observed, their energy shifting distinctly, puncturing Gareth's bravado. They were beginning to recognize the courage Dakota exhibited in openly challenging their intimidation. Power is about how you can enrich others and uplift their voices, not about suppression. Dakota connected verbally to those feelings swirling within the crowd. And together we can reclaim our right to be seen, to be heard. Gareth's bravado faltered at the implication of Dakota's words. Just then, a resolute Charlie stepped closer, emboldened by Dakota's determination. "Gareth, you should listen. We'll draw and paint, and you can't stop us. We'll show you that this art matters." The fire ignited by Dakota began to blaze in others, creating sparks of hope and courage that could dismantle even the darkest of shadows. The younger children rallied behind Charlie. They rallied behind Dakota. Suddenly, Gareth's mask slipped fully away. "You think you can just turn the tide, cowboy? You're a fool. This town has rules." A collective gasp spread through the crowd, Dakota's heart racing as he stepped closer, embodying the unwavering spirit that had developed within him. "Then let's change the rules," he challenged, daring stillness to rest in him. "Let the children of this town show who they are through art. You can't bulldoze what they create. Art is limitless." Gareth clenched his fists, frustration evident as he could feel the control slipping from his grip. But Dakota, bolstered by overwhelming support and empowerment, stood firm as the cheers from the crowd intensified. In that charged moment, Dakota felt the convergence of past and present. He was no longer just an entrepreneur battling shame, but an advocate standing up for the creative expressions that had the power to reshape lives.
"From this day on," Dakota announced with purpose, "we will host art exhibits, workshops, and create a community space where everyone belongs. We will paint the future we want to see." As he spoke, Dakota finally felt the weight of uncertainty lift. He was now grounded in a reality that had become clearer with every heartbeat. The transition was startling when Gareth's mask finally broke. Faced with the overwhelming resolve of the children and the vibrant community emerging around them, he faltered. "You think this is over?" he spat, retreating for the moment. Dakota's heart raced, sensing the finality within the energy of the crowd. It was filled with raw potential. The children's faces glowed alive, eyes bright with the revelation that they too could reclaim their narrative. "You've lost, Gareth," Dakota asserted, words infused with strength as Gareth backed away. The connection in the eyes of each child cementing his mission. "Now it's our time to shine." Time swelled as applause erupted, laughter intertwined with hope. Freedom flooded the spaces previously marred with doubt. Dakota felt an invigorating pulse of triumph. He had climbed mountains of ambiguity and emerged unscathed. From that moment on, the Orphans House transformed under his nurturing hands. Art workshops expanded, laughter echoed through canvas-laden walls, and each child found a voice, a vivid expression of their potential. Dakota no longer felt the emptiness that once echoed in his estate. He had filled it with vibrant colors, human connections, and relentless support. Recognized by the community, Dakota became a beacon of transformation, helping both himself and the children breathe life into their dreams. The newfound courage sculpted a legacy that others rallied around, forever changing the narrative of both the orphanage and Dakota's own story. And in that resounding victory there was gratitude, a deep realization that vulnerability was not a weakness, but a strength, fueling the collective future ahead. Dakota Reynolds succeeded in not only rescuing the Orphans House, but through his own metamorphosis, he had proven that true fulfillment lay in opening one's heart to connection, growth, and the beauty of shared stories.
Now, reflected in the smiling faces of the children, he held a solid confidence and established position as mentor and advocate. Dakota stood tall among them, a proud member of a vibrant tapestry woven through artistry, a completion of his journey back to humanity. This was his moment, an enduring transformation he welcomed with open arms. You need to subscribe now to see more transformative journeys like Dakota's. This is the moment to show your support and help us keep spreading these emotional stories. Don't wait even one more second to leave a like. It's vital for our reach. Comment your thoughts and theories about Dakota's journey below.
And remember to share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this powerful conclusion. Let the world witness the beauty of hope and resilience.